over 1,000 again. What do I even mean by that? So ChainSpect recently reported that the internet computer just set another 7-day high at 1,459 transactions per second. That's kind of legendary stuff right there, and it kind of showcases the capabilities of the internet computer. Because remember, in one of my previous videos, I talked about how the internet computer achieved over 1,000 transactions per second in a day, like back then. And then now they're doing it yet again. And I'll explain why I think this could even matter, even though it's not necessarily about the price anyways, because there's not much going on there. However, I'll even talk about it later just a little bit. But again, I first want to clarify, nothing I say is financial advice. I'm not telling anyone to do anything. Just my perspective, my mindset, and outlook when it comes to this. So keep in mind, on top of everything that I just mentioned before, the internet computer actually processed more than 126 million transactions in a single day. This is allegedly, according to ChainSpect, right? More transactions than some blockchain ecosystems have processed ever since launch. What the? So we gotta think about the activity that's going on behind the scenes when it comes to the internet computer. I get it. People like to say, well, the price is only $2.15 approximately. Like, it hasn't really done much of anything. Like, if we take a look at it, ever since, a month ago, the price is literally basically the same. The internet computer is only down around 1% in the past month. Things are stagnating. Things are looking very boring. The whole market overall as of right now is looking very boring. But guess what? The internet computer, things are still going on behind the scenes, it seems like. And they're still doing their thing in terms of the activity. The way I take a look at it is this. The internet computer, I get it. People like to say when it comes to Dfinity, them launching Caffeine AI, OEC, them looking to launch cloud engines, them looking to launch multi-dex, they say all of this is useless. They say that. But need I remind people that if the market were to recover, these are the things that people usually care about. I'm just saying. Let me just use like an example from my own life experience, right? It's like, for instance, back then, what did I like? Tech Deck, Call of Duty, and all this. But imagine if I told my friends back then and I said, hey, you know what? Let's talk about the S&P 500. Let's, care about that. Let's talk about gold or Bitcoin or whatever. They'd be like, what are you on about, bro? You know what I mean? Like, they would just think about like what I said as being something so uncool, as something so unimportant. But these very friends, as of right now, are the ones caring about that currently. You know what I mean? So that's the thing. Things sometimes don't really matter back then, but they do matter sometimes a lot later on. So that's the way I take a look at it. It's like, for instance, do my tech decks matter? No. And of course, what I mean by tech deck is like, those miniature skateboards you can do tricks with, like you play it with your finger or your hand or whatever, and like, you try to do this, right? I was never really that good, but again, that was what was trendy back then. Let's say if I was good at video games or something back then, does it matter now? No. Like me caring about, all the stuff I did care about back then, a lot of this stuff doesn't really matter right now. And all the stuff that mattered or was supposed to matter back then still kind of matters currently. Just take a look at for instance, the S&P 500 not too long ago, making an all-time high. I get it, Bitcoin's down, but not that long ago, it did reach an all-time high, right? I mean, okay, it's down, but I'm saying still. And then also on top of that, take a look at gold. Not that long ago, it also made a new all-time high, even though it's now down compared to that. But I'm just saying still. That type of stuff arguably did matter like back then. It just wasn't cool or interesting for like a lot of me and my friends, right? But now we're the same people who are caring about this type of stuff. So the way you take a look at it is that what goes on with the internet computer, it may not matter right now, but I'm saying if the market were to hypothetically recover, and the keyword is if, right? Or should I say if it were to recover? I guess this type of stuff is what people usually care about, and this type of stuff could matter later. It just may not matter right now. But it's hard to think about it at the time because it's hard to comprehend at the time, right? To think about like, why would something like this even matter later? But I've seen it like time and time again historically. It's like, for instance, take a look at Cardano. People kind of ignored it for quite a while. Then we saw what happened in 2021. That's the thing. But that wouldn't have happened if they had stopped building, if they had stopped innovating. But when it comes to Dfinity, they're treating 2026 not as a time to feel disappointed or like, just close up shop. It doesn't seem like that. Dfinity, they're treating 2026 as a very serious year to continue on building, because I think they feel that it may matter later on. Case in point, they launched Caffeine AI version 3 this year. They launched OEC version 2.5 this year. They're looking to launch cloud engines, it seems like, in 2026. And then also on top of that, they announced multi-DEX in 2026. So we got to think about this. These are all massive things that they've all done in 2026, just like all I mentioned before, right? So again, when I take a look at this right here, their computer's not slowing down. If anything, it's actually speeding up. Not that it really matters too much as of right now, arguably I would say, but this is the type of stuff that people take a look back on later on. So yeah, I get it. It's a little bit hard to think about that with their computer being at around $2.15. It's easy to say, wow, this project is so cooked and everything like that, but apparently, Dfinity, they're not treating it that way. They're continuing to do their thing. Need I also remind people, right? Their computer can allegedly connect Web 2 and Web 3 without oracles, which basically bypasses a whole process. Take a look at Chainlink, which is really focused on oracles. The purpose of that, even, right, is to basically allow these apps to get off-chain data in a sense where Chainlink, it's very focused on oracles. An oracle in that case is basically a data feed that brings data from off the chain, so it's called off-chain data, and it brings that data over into the blockchain, which again helps apps within this space run and function properly, because without that off-chain data, many of them can't really function properly. So that's a very crucial thing, arguably people would say. But when it comes to their computer, it's like, wait, hold up. They don't even need that additional process. It can connect Web 2 and Web 3, allegedly, without oracles. So that's kind of the thing that they're doing. So this is all the stuff that Dfinity is working on, right? So again, yeah, I get it. It's very boring as of right now, but they just keep on doing their thing. And so far, as of right now, I can't really say I'm disappointed in terms of the fundamentals. In terms of the price charts, it's a little bit different because it's still at around $2.15. So if we take a look at it, right, back in November of last year, the price was around $9. Yeah, I mean, if we go back there, the journey is over 4 times, keep in mind. And does anyone think $9 was so tough when it comes to this? We literally saw it in November. It wasn't even that good anyways back then. Because in 2024, this reached almost $19, so $9 was viewed as something that was quite bad. But yet, we are now going back to there, the journey is over 4 times. That's the thing. So that showcases just how low the intercomputer has gone, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing either, because I don't mind the dip. Now, I'm not telling anyone to do anything, but that's just my mindset. I want to say thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a very wonderful and fantastic day. It's been Lee the Captain, and hopefully I'll see you all in the next one.